let's next move to Mr. Art Adams, representing ARRI. What do you got for us, Art?
Well, I've got some new stuff for you, and I'll try to keep it quick. What I'm going to show you is all new. I'm not going to really touch on all the stuff that I touched on in the past, where I really go into the look. If you haven't seen my presentations before, just get in touch at lenses@arri.com, and I can send you some stills and walk you through the look. But why don't we start with the presentation, and I'll crank through this relatively quickly. So that's me, and this presentation is going to touch on some very new stuff that we went and shot a bunch of wildlife footage at the Jackson Wild Festival this year up in Jackson, Wyoming. So I'm going to use a bunch of clips from that. First, this is how prolific signature primes are in the market right now. This is actually a real screenshot. I don't know how this happened, but someone on Walmart Canada was advertising a 75mm signature prime. So I guess they're kind of ubiquitous if they show up on the Walmart site. So 16 focal lengths, basically the largest match set of Super 35 and large format primes in the market. We have 12 to 280, 12 to 150 or 2.8. The 200 is 2.5. The 280 is 2.8. They look large, but they're very lightweight. Everyone is surprised when they pick them up. There are optical advantages to using large optical elements, and also keeping the housings a little on the larger side, because then we have enough room to do things like eliminate or severely reduce focus breathing. So they look big, but they don't weigh much at all. They're actually lighter than an equivalent master prime. So we kind of reinvented how we did things, because the past lenses, the look was designed to provide the highest quality image to an analog medium, which is film. And basically that was the idea, is to let film do the heavy lifting as far as the look goes, and then we just wanted to communicate the best image possible to it. Digital is different, because digital sees maybe a little bit too much, a little bit too clearly. So what we wanted to do is find a character that fit within our brand, so high performance, was beautiful, so emphasis on aesthetics, and also looked great going forward. So the idea is we're looking at where are things going in 10 or 15 years, and displays are only going to become more immersive, and a lot of the characteristics that people typically think of as making a lens beautiful or imparting character don't look so good in HDR. So what we did was a lot of research to try to figure out what will look good in HDR, so that we're not just communicating reality, we're giving it a nice little spin, we're giving it some character, but it's going to hold up. So if you're shooting today and you're only monitoring in HD, and then you get to the Dolby Vision suite and you see your image at 4,000 nits in UHD, the idea is that it's only going to look better, and there's going to be few to no surprises. So I'm going to be talking mostly about the zooms, which is almost exclusively what we shot with when we went to Jackson Hole. We have 16 to 32, 24 to 75, 45 to 135, and 5 to 300. And Jim always likes the bad news. The two extreme ones, the 16 to 32, the 65 to 300, they're in the $70,000 range. The 65 to 300 does come with a dedicated 1.7 times extender that turns it into a 110 to 510 T 4.9. All the zooms are T2.8. The middle two zooms are in the upper 40s, low 50s. So if you want exact pricing, get in touch and I can give you some numbers. And they intercut seamlessly with signature primes. There are a couple of minor differences that you most likely will never notice, but they are designed to match the signature look in a number of very key ways. So here's our 16 to 32 prototype in action for the first time. This is the Munich Youth Ballet. We captured a performance. So there is a little bit more distortion in the zooms than in the primes. We could have eliminated distortion in the zooms as well as we have in the primes, which are virtually distortion free. That's minimal. I mean, even the 12, you'd have to put it on a lens projector to see it. But there are advantages to leaving a little distortion in, and the advantage is there's an interplay between chromatic aberration and distortion. You can solve for one or the other in a very complex lens like a zoom, but it's very difficult and very, very, very expensive to eliminate both. So we allowed a little bit of extra distortion because we're betting that you're going to notice chromatic aberration in HDR long before you notice an extra little bit of distortion. So the 16 to 32 does have a little bit of distortion to it, but it's very, very clean when it comes to the chromatic aberration. As we go through, you'll notice the flares have a little bit of a glow to them. That's to take the hard edge off, because highlights with hard edges tend to stutter or strobe on pans in HDR. It has nothing to do with the capture device. It has to do with the way your brain perceives bright images and movement. By adding a little bit of a glow, maybe an 8th light promist is the way I like to describe it, we minimize that stuttering effect. And that's what goes into these lenses, is trying to make them look better as time goes on. We don't really know where display technologies are going. We have a good idea, and we're just trying to prepare for what's coming. Skin tone is beautiful. The bokeh matches our signature primes. It's very soft. It's very smooth. The lenses feel like they roll out of focus very quickly. We can go to the next one. And once again, the 16 to 32. There's that glow that I talked about with the highlight, taking a little bit of the edge off. There's a little bit of atmosphere in there as well. But even up close with the 16 on the wide end, people look great, which is very similar to what happens with our 15mm prime, which is really popular in commercials and music videos, specifically because you can force perspective, put people in the frame, and they still look great. Skin tone, skin looks beautiful. It doesn't look affected. It just looks very natural and not artificially sharp, not artificially soft, just very natural and real. And this image, I like this image because her face is a little bit down, but we still see a lot of texture and a lot of clarity, and we can see the focus roll off. You can see the detail and the feathers rolling off very quickly. We carried this over from the primes, and there's also a little trick that I'm going to show you really quickly, and it actually informs a lot of what the other images I'm going to show. This is a still captured by director of photography Logan Schneider, who was the first adopter of signature primes in the LA area. He actually shot our signature prime launch video. He shot our signature zoom launch video. This is a 280mm signature prime. What he discovered with these lenses is that if you underexpose them by a half stop to a stop and then pull them up later, you can actually stretch out the shoulder of the exposure curve and keep some color and detail in the highlights that otherwise you wouldn't have. Now, we discovered this because a lot of DPs have said these lenses are very low contrast. They're not. You do see more shadow detail, but that's because you just see more detail in the shadows because the lenses are exceptionally clear. Typically, low contrast lenses are low contrast because of veiling glare, and the entire image melts up. You see more shadow detail, but you don't have a true black. In this case, you see more shadow detail, and you do have a true black. And this is an example. I mean, lots of color. And when I showed Logan these clips, and he said, why don't you pull them down about a half stop to a stop, and then add just a little bit of vibrance, which is mid-tone color in Photoshop. In Resolve, it's called Color Boost. Just add a couple of points to that, and it's just stunning how much detail there is in the shadows, while also preserving highlight details in Rec 709. And this is a great image for that, because initially I graded this up a bit more to try to see into the shadows. The shadows were a little darker, and Logan encouraged me to pull the entire thing down by about a half to 2/3 of a stop. And here's what happened. Tremendous amount of detail in those mountains. Now, this shot was a zoom out from this shot to that wide shot. And this is employing the 1.7 times extender. So the extender is on. I'm at 510 all the way at the end. There's no exposure ramping, and there's a huge amount of detail. For a long zoom with an extender, this is pretty amazing. And then by just popping a little bit of extra color in the shadows, I may have played a little bit with the midtones, but I was able to capture this image with a huge range of, a lot of detail on both the highlights and the shadows. This is Old Faithful. We took a little tour through Yellowstone, employing the same technique, trying to carry the dynamic range from the backlit steam all the way down into the shadows. Basically, the lenses will deliver more detail than a typical sensor can handle. And this is true of every camera. Here's another example of the extender. I basically put the extender on this zoom and left it on the entire time. And the focus roll off and the bokeh completely consistent with our signature primes. And what's really nice about how these lenses roll out of focus is you can do shots like this and maybe shoot at a 4 and still get a really nice focus roll off. Same here. I mean, the quality of this image when I look at an exported TIFF or look at it on a UHD monitor, it's absolutely stunning. Now that is smoke from California fires. We had a couple of days that were pretty smoky, but yeah, a little haze never hurt. But as you can see, the foreground is really clear. This is just showing the range of that zoom with and without the extender. We say that with the extender, the zoom goes from T28 to T49. I think it's probably more about 4.5, maybe a little brighter than that, because in my tests with the extender, it always photographs a little bit brighter than it should, which is, I think, good news. But the quality is fairly stunning. I don't know if you can see that in the bottom right image, but there's a little platform to the right of the waterfall with people standing on it. And I've actually got videos where we did slow zooms in. These are pulled from either end of the zoom. So at some point I'll release those, but it's a pretty stunning example of what the zoom can do. But now let's go to the other end. 16 to 32, great lens for landscapes. And that's actually, it was designed with landscapes in mind. We actually did this shot on a 3-foot slider that we were dragging around, just looking for opportunities to do little slider moves. It's just a phenomenal lens. I'm really excited about it. And actually, I showed it to a DP recently who immediately said, I'm doing a limited series in a month, and I can use this for a month out of our 3 or 4 month schedule. Just on one location, this would be perfect. So we're actually going to loan him the prototype. And as you can see, there's just a tremendous amount of detail and subtlety. Textures come through amazingly well. And there's a clarity as well. And it just feels very natural. And on a high-res display, it's absolutely stunning. Let's talk a little bit about this rear filter holder. This is on the zooms as well as the primes. We're in the process of working on some vintage optical elements that we're going to put in the back of these. And those have to be very high precision. So it's taking us a little while to get them exactly right. But in the meantime, I visited a rental house, CSLA, and ran into a DP, Jay Keitel, who is working with Signature Primes on a project and testing all these different filters that he has made himself out of vellum, just carving and cutting things out of hand. Now, I thought that was a great idea, and I shot a commercial back in my freelance days for a company called Cricut that makes these hardware cutters that look like inkjet printers, but they're actually computerized cutters. And I'm in the process of working out a way to create the same kind of patterns, but to be able to scale them up and down. So if you put on a longer focal length lens, you can have the same pattern, just smaller, and you can make that up very quickly. And here's a shout out to Matt Duclos. His LPL extension tubes for LPL are really, really nice. They're 15 millimeters each. Logan Schneider invited me over to his rental house 2020 camera, and he showed me what he was able to do with a 45 to 135 signature zoom and 2 stacked LPL extension tubes. So you can see the extension tubes on the left. We shot some master grips in the middle. You can see where that is in relation to the lens, and you can see the shot that we got. The extension tubes are very affordable. People keep asking us when we're going to do a signature macro. I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon, if at all, but with a trick like this in your pocket, I don't see the need. The quality that comes out of this combination is absolutely stunning. Shipping dates, 45 to 135, shipping now. We have actually fulfilled all of our US orders, and now we have a bunch more orders, actually as many orders again. So these things are really cranking. The 65 to 300, we've had some supply chain issues with some of the exotic glass inside. We're looking at probably next week or the following week to start shipping those in significant numbers. 16 to 32 is still on track for January 2022, and the 24 to 75 is on track for February. I currently have prototypes, or I have one sales demo final 45 to 135 as well. So if you're interested in seeing any of these, please get in touch. That's me, easy to find. So if there's anything I can help you with, lens or even just ARRI related, if I can't answer a question, I will find someone who can. And that's it for me. Hopefully I didn't go too far over time.
Okay, Art, I'm really glad to see ARRI, getting into zooms more extensively, because I love zooms.